Joining us in the studio, and we do this on a monthly basis. Sometimes, though, we do it more often as needed. We're joined in the studio by Kelton Hatch from Idaho Fish and Game. Uh, we say sometimes more often because occasionally, Kelton. First of all, welcome back.
Well, appreciate it. Glad to be back.
Once in a while, something will come up, that's really important, a hearing or something along those lines, and we get a chance to have a sit down with you. Today, though, is just we do the rundown of a number of different topics and take some telephone calls too as well. Uh, I had mentioned before you got in here, I was on the air talking about fishing because of all the runoff. It's going to make fishing interesting in some places this year.
Well, I don't know whether it's interesting or just really slow. I feel bad for anglers. Typically, this time of year, the lakes have really cleaned
Well,
up.
some of us who'd be fishing might be slow, but that's
Yeah,
a
yeah. Well, typically the lakes right now we're usually just thumping the rainbow in at Salmon Dam, over at Walcott, and some of these different areas. But the water that's coming into the lakes is really muddy still. We've got so much runoff, and we've got I didn't ever think I'd ever hear this, but one of my my buddies was out fishing at Salmon Dam, took his kids out there, and he says it's impossible to fish from the shoreline in some areas because when you cast in, you catch the sagebrush that's underwater
yeah.
because the lake's so full. I mean, the spillways is spilling, and it's only the second time in 108 years that it's spilled out there.
Yeah, and I'm told that sometimes even opening those gates is you don't, they tend to rust without out a lot of use.
Yeah, well, I think this one is just a ditch that once it gets so full, it goes around the dam
Right.
and dumps it off, and so it's just kind of when it gets that high, it's an overflow check. But I've never seen that much. Well, I've only been here for 15 years, and so yeah, it's amazing to see the amount of water and Magic Reservoir has been spilling for several weeks, and it's just gotten bigger. I mean, since the it warmed up again, it's washed one of their service roads out up there. If you want to see some images, I know that there's been some of them bouncing around either on TV or on the newspaper and stuff like that. But if you go to our fishing game Facebook page at Magic Valley Fishing, Idaho Fishing Game Magic Valley. We've got some aerial photos of Magic's spillway, and we've got a bunch of Salmon Falls Creek, some videos and some photos of Salmon Falls, and it's just amazing how much water's coming out of there. Um, and we're really, this little cool off that we've had this week, well, or big cool off that we've had this last
Yesterday,
week.
anyway.
Yeah, yesterday. It was fairly chilly yesterday. We had like 120, 130 second graders fishing yesterday. Yeehaw. Poor little buggers about froze to the fishing poles. And then the wind wasn't blowing hardly at all. It was only like 30 miles an hour. So it was just kind of a rough day. But we've got it's just kind of cool for this time of year, but we're really anticipating to see a higher stream runoff coming this weekend. We've had this precip, we've got a little bit of new snow, and then we got this warming temperatures. It's supposed to be 81 next week, and I'm just hoping that the folks up in the Wood River Valley brace themselves and get things. I mean, we've uh, we've got so much going on with this. Uh, the streams are running off so fast, we can't plant fish in them. We can't plant fish in certain lakes. I mean, we went at Magic. We typically plant closer to the dam. Well, we got the spillway running, and so we don't want to dump the fish in there and watch them swim over the spillway.
Right.
And so now we're taking them back to the hot springs areas to transplant them. We've got close to 9,000 fish that we just reallocated. So I mean, Durkees and Filer Kids ponds and some of these protected waters are going to get a lot of fish because we just we can't put them in our streams yet. Rock Creek is running too hot. Um, the wood, everything, Silver Creek, it opens Memorial Day weekend. I think that's about going to be the only place in town to really fish because it's a spring-fed stream and it's still high. The springs are running high, and so I don't know. It's pretty interesting the way things go. We've got 9,000 fish that we just reallocated for this month, and we're anticipating that we're going to have this heavy runoffs through June, and so we'll probably have to reallocate those fish too.
I know I drove over the Salmon Dam last Thursday about noon, and I got the impression that I could literally, if I'd wanted to, gotten out and put my arm into the water. Because
Yeah.
the wall isn't very high there, but I mean, you talk about high. That was impressive to
Well,
see.
typically it's really high. I saw this picture that we've got a picture on our Facebook page of a rancher coming off there with his gooseneck truck, pulling it by his big diesel pickup, and I'm sitting here going, he's a lot braver than I am. I just think of all the pressure of all that water on that dam and how high it is, and then I'm sitting here going, is my truck and that one real heavy cow going to be the straw that broke the camel's back? And it's like, yeah, it's just no, there's a lot of water. Oakley Reservoir down here. I mean, I had some friends that were down there catching walleye. Um, he's an avid walleye angler, and he said he had a good day, but he said they're dumping a lot of water right now because they're really concerned that they're going to go over their spillway, and so there's just a lot of water. You can't complain about it. I mean,
Right.
last year when it was dry, we were complaining that we didn't have enough. I guess I'm just a terminal complainer.
I think it was
But
1984, right, when Oakley they had the flooding at that
yeah,
time.
and that was the last time I think it was that was the last time Salmon Falls uh, Reservoir actually spilled, and then but they said it's been 108 years, and it only spilled one time in the 80s, and I think that was 84 when Oakley had the same deal.
So this could be, in some cases, once in a lifetime, twice at best.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, yeah. It's pretty amazing how much precip that we've had this year. The mountains are just lush. The grass is knee high. We were very blessed this winter. There's a lot of people felt we had a pretty rough winter, but compared to the surrounding areas, our deer and our elk herds made it through the winter pretty much unscathed. I mean, we did have some mortality up north, in the Wood River area, but I mean, we're talking like states like Wyoming that had 100% fawn mortality.
Hmm.
Um, some of our state has had 100%, right on the Oregon, Idaho, Washington border over there. We had some units that we lost, a lot of deer. Um, Over by Pocatello, Soda Springs, over on the Wyoming Idaho border. Get up around Idaho Falls, it was doing a little bit better. But we were at normal. We were one of the only places that was really at normal fawn mortality. We had very good overall fawn survival, very good elk survival. Things are going to be great for this coming year.
I was going to say that it's sad, but with the herd thinned to some degree, that means there's more forage available for those who survive.
Well, it is, and I mean, the thing is that's the tough part about, you know, we were at such a high on deer in Idaho. Um, I mean, we were pushing numbers that we were in the early 90s, on some of our population counts, and our elk numbers are up there, but um, that's typically the way it goes. I mean, that's what we use hunting for. We try to manage those deer so that we have more. We don't want to manage at top capacity exactly what the habitat will supply, because if you have a harsh winter or you have a real drought, you can lose a lot more animals. And so you try to manage it below. But yeah, I think things are going to work out really well. Don't get me wrong. I do not think that eastern Idaho and western Idaho are going to have bad hunting seasons. We had so many deer and elk in those areas, and we didn't have hardly any elk mortality anywhere in the state. The elk numbers are going to be really strong, and we were at such a high on deer numbers in all those areas that I really don't think that the hunters are going to see much of a change. It's just not at that growth rate that we'd been experiencing every year where I mean, we flew 54 and 55 this year, and we were about 3,000, 4,000 more deer than we'd ever counted down there in the last, you know, 5 or 6, or well, since our last count was about 3 to 4,000 more than we had on our previous count. And so, we've had a really high growth rate for deer in the last several years. And so I think it's going to be a tremendous season, and the habitat looks great out there, and just get out there and enjoy it.
I saw grass some places last week, just in people's lawns. That is, it's eight. inches high.
Did you drive by my house? No,
Yeah.
no.
But it has, the weather has prevented a lot of people from even trying to cut it, but there's so much moisture that it's been able to just shoot right up.
Oh, it is, and I mean, it was nice. There at first, you'd look at these alfalfa fields around here, and you're like, "Wow, we're really slow." And then we had that little bit of blast of sun, and it popped up, and people's yards are doing the same. Spring's a lot later this year. We're about 2 to 3 weeks later than we typically are. Our water temperatures in our lakes are about 3 weeks behind where they typically are. Typically, we're having good walleye bites coming on right now. The water temperatures are getting up there. Well, they're really cold still, and it's because you got big ice cubes up in the mountains melting
Yeah.
and running into them still. And so you're gonna. This is just, I guess, what you'd call the good old days when we used to have snow and lots of precip. And so,
You got a little bit more to talk about when it comes to the fishing segment here, as well, as I understand.
yeah. One thing I was going to talk about a little bit more was the water runoff for this area. A lot of our water that comes into the Magic Valley comes from um, up out of Yellowstone and stuff, and that's what it comes down the Snake. I just thought it'd be kind of interesting for folks that just to know how much extra water we have in the system. Excuse me. Jackson Lake is kind of the top end of the deal. Right now, they're dumping seven current flows are at 7,500 cubic feet per second. Typically, this time of year, we're running
So
3,400.
it's over double.
It's over double. Palisades is typically is this is the big one. It just blows me away. Uh, their 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 uh, their typical flows are 10,600. Currently, they're discharging about around 27,000.
Swan Valley is the greenest place in the
Yeah.
Northwest.
Well, the basin up there is 160% of normal on snowpack, and so we've got a ton of snow up in that area, and moisture coming out of there. I was going to look. American Falls is the last one I'll tell you about. I mean, American Falls is currently running 22,000. That's the 7-day average. Typically, we're running 11,000 on American Falls. They're 98% full and are dumping water like crazy. It's just, we've actually had reports out here at Murtaugh of a bunch of sturgeon getting pushed down into out of Milner, out of the Snake River system, and they've got into the canal system, and now they're being pushed into Murtaugh Lake. And so just wanted to warn people you can still fish for them, but you cannot take them home. They're still protected, even though that's not a typical fishing spot for them. But we're getting fish and just getting things, lots of water.
We've got more with Kelton Hatch on the way. He's joining us from Idaho Fish and Game this morning. We're at 9:20, and right now it's 41. Our projected high is 42. We're going to surpass that today. That's what the computer says. Every other forecast says the high will be 55, likely on our way to that by this afternoon. Kelton Hatch is in the studio with us from Idaho Fish and Game, joining us this morning until 10 o'clock. Coming up on 9:23, Bill Colley with you as well on Top Story. And I wanted to point out we're at 42, and the weather will get better over the next several days, looking at temperatures by the middle of next week in the 80s. Just a quick reminder, of course, weather is a service of Mountain Home Auto Ranch in Mountain Home. And I'd like to add as well, because a lot of people, you may not have had any need for that air conditioner to be on, but you may be thinking, I'm going to need it next week. Well, flip it on now, see what it does. And if you need somebody to do some service, call the folks at Ramsey Heating and Electric in Burley. They'll come out and they'll get the job done, and they'll get it done right the first time. Problem-free cozy winters are found at Ramsey Heating and Electric, but as well, they sell cool summers too. Telephone number is 678-0459, 678-0459, or drop in 2600 Overland Avenue in Burley. A lot to talk about this morning still, and we probably should get right to it.
You bet. I was just going to mention one other thing on the fishing. Warm Springs right now, Penny Lake and all those lakes up in there, they're underwater, and so just be aware of that. Also, we've got water coming from Oakley Reservoir that has gone across. We've had so much precip. If anybody, well, it's just we've just got water going everywhere. So just when you're out there, be careful. And if you're finding different types of fish in different areas, give us a holler. It's like I got a call just the other day about the sturgeon out there in Milner, and so it's
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know where that's coming from.
we got a little
It sounds like my telephone, but
phone, your telephone or something, but
making noise.
got a little country playing in the background. But if you're seeing something interesting or different out there, it's kind of this thing's kind of throwing things around. It's been interesting to see where we've been finding pronghorn even this year is um, in Kimberly out by the research center, halfway into town. We've been seeing pronghorn antelope, and so over by Hanson there was a little herd over in that area, and so you get a lot of rain, you get a lot of different type of weather conditions and stuff like that, and it's having an effect pretty much on everything.
When I was at Lucky Peak a few weeks ago and I was taking some pictures at the dam, I didn't want to get too close to the edge. And then I got back to work, and that very same week, fellow was trying to take photographs and he fell in and drowned. Not there, but
Yeah.
here in the region. And so people who are out fishing and maybe they're trying to back off a ramp or even just taking pictures like I was, they've got to be really careful.
Well, they do. There's a gentleman up there in the Sun Valley area that had a plug pump in the basement of his house because he had like 6 foot of water in his basement and he was trying to unplug it and he ended up passing away, drowned, and up there. And so, yeah, when you get this much water, I mean, and next week we're supposed to be in the mid 80s. There's still a lot of if you're working up north or around that area, Memorial Day weekend streams are going to be boiling still.
Yeah.
So be careful with your kids and just, I'd probably kind of stay away from the water sports because there's not going to be any fishing in any of the creeks yet. Flows are still going to be so high over Memorial Day weekend. It would shock me if things calm down enough, and we're not even anticipating planning a lot of those streams at flow rates that we have now for another month.
You wanted to mention pelicans today.
Well, I was going to
We don't
mention
talk a
this.
lot about pelicans.
Yeah, well, we'll mention this short and sweet. Pelicans are one of those deals. It seems like the colonies. At one time, we had all the pelicans were down in Utah, and I don't know why, but it feels like whether it's climate change or whatever we want to call it, we're just seeing those pelicans and the breeding areas moving further and further north, and they're kind of landing on the Magic Valley. And we're getting more and more. I was talking to my our fish manager the other day, and I felt bad for him because he says if there's anything that keeps me up at night, he says, is how we're going to manage pelicans because they're still a protected species and he says it's almost overwhelming the number of pelicans we're starting to see. And we've got hazing programs that we use. We've got a lot of different studies going on where we're collaring and trapping them and trying to monitor where they're going. And
They have big
but
appetites.
they do, and they can be devastating on fish populations. Right now we've got a bunch of them that have found silver creek, which isn't a good thing. Like any of our other bodies of water, problem with Creek, it's so clear and clean that the fish they can really have some damage on 'em. So we have a hazer up there that his job is to go around and fire cracker shells at pelicans, trying to keep them off certain stretches of of Silver Creek. It's not all of it. We don't do it on the private lands, and we don't do it on the Nature Conservancy properties, but on other areas of access and things like that. We've started a program up there, and I can't answer a lot of questions about it. That's about all I know about pelicans is right there, and so but it's kind of an interesting program as things change, and it's just interesting how things are always changing.
Got about a minute before the break, and you mentioned sage grouse numbers.
We went out and we did our lek routes, and the lek again is a place where the males come and display dance, trying to entice the gals to come over and say hi. And we go out and we count these dancing areas or these lekking areas every year. We do about 560 leks, in the Magic Valley, and it looks like things are still holding pretty strong um, around here. Some of our leks were way down, but others were way up, and it looks like it's going to be a pretty good balance. I mean, pretty much a flush. Just we didn't have any decline, and we didn't really have a big increase last year. We didn't have a great hatch last year for sage grouse. A lot of our other birds did really well, but sage grouse didn't. So we're still monitoring them really close. Hopefully, the next time I come on, we'll have the statewide wrap up on that so that I'll know exactly what's going on.
We wanted to point out we've got a short break, and Kelton's also available in the next half hour to take some of your telephone calls. We're going to talk about the one thing that seems to drive a lot of traffic on the phones, and that's, of course, licensing and fees,
Yeah.
uh, which is beyond his control, we should point out. You don't set those, somebody else does.
Oh, no. I wish I did. That way I'd have a nicer truck.
You're listening to Top Story this morning. Kelton Hatch from Idaho Fish and Game is in studio with us. Bill Colley with you as well. And right now we're at 41 and one more half hour to go. Our studio guest is joining us from Idaho Fish and Game. Kelton Hatch joins us on a monthly basis, sometimes more frequently. We're at 9:33. It's 41. Bill Colley with you as well on Top Story on News Radio 1310. KLIX and newsradio1310.com. Telephone number if you'd like to reach the program this morning, 736-0300, 736-0300. And I'm sure there's going to be a few questions after you talk about some of the fees and licensing because there have been some changes. People shouldn't be surprised. This has not been a secret.
It hasn't. And so before we get into that, I was going to talk about right now is the time to get your applications in
Right.
for your deer, elk, and antelope. And I was just going to run through a few of the rules that I get a lot of phone calls on. If you drew a buck tag last year or a bull tag last year, you are not eligible to apply for a buck or bull tag this year, but you can apply for an either sex or a cow or doe hunt, or you can just hunt general tags, or you can apply for any unlimited. We get a lot of people that they drew a buck last year and they put in for this year, and then their application just gets kicked out. And so that's going on. That goes on until June 5th. Please do not show up on June 5th with all 4,000 other people because our systems end up usually dying that weekend. We used to have it over Memorial Day weekend because it would close on Memorial Day weekend, but it was really kind of a double whammy because everybody was buying their fishing licenses going out, and everybody was trying to put in for their controlled hunts, and we really blew the systems up. Hopefully next year that's taken care of because we're getting a new licensing system. The other big deal today, it wasn't a big deal for me. I'm really upset, Bill. I did not draw my trophy species animal again. Big anybody that put in for moose, sheep, or goat, the results are out online. You can go online, use your hunting license number, and see if you were luckier than myself. I didn't draw again after. I'm not surprised. It's about a 1 in 12, 1 in 13 drawing odd. It's only my 7th year applying, so I figure I got 12 more years. I mean, well, what is that? 5 more years until I hit the 1 in 12. So I should dry out within the next 5 years.
We've got a caller with us. It's 9:36, and caller, you're on the air with Kelton Hatch from Idaho Fish and Game.
Yeah, hi. I many years ago I fished out at, I think it's called Dog Creek Reservoir north of Goody.
Yep.
What are fishing conditions like there these days?
Really good. Actually, that is one of those places that you can go out and have some fun. We've got some good. There's some rainbow in there. It's kind of a melting pot, I guess you could say, of fish. We have channel cat out there. We have some warm water.
Smallmouth.
Yep, exactly. And then we've got some rainbows in there also. And you know, it's a nice little pond, and yeah, it's a great place to go.
Okay, great.
It made that man's day. Thank you for the call.
Hallelujah.
A little bit of good news in all of the runoff this year.
Well, it is. You know, and the runoff's great news. It's nice to see water in the lakes and the reservoirs. I mean, I didn't think we'd ever fill Magic up again. It's full. It's awesome. And so we're going to be able to raise some good fish up in there. And so, no. So if you put in for those trophy species, I know a couple people that I looked at some tags. All our 54 sheep tags were local folks that drew those down here. And so, you know, It's that day. It's kind of like Christmas, Bill. This is like you've been waiting for it, and this is like I opened my present, and it wasn't my Red Ryder BB gun.
Yeah.
Because, if you've watched Christmas Story, you'd understand that. But no, it was kind of a disappointing Christmas this year for me. But we got the second draw for my wife and my kids, so we'll look at that for the deer, elk, and antelope.
We should point out too, when you mentioned June 5th and you said don't all try June 5th, you got 2 weeks here.
We do, and it's amazing. People go, well, it's no big deal, guys. We have there's a lot of people that apply for tags. The Magic Valley is the biggest controlled hunt area in the state of Idaho because we have a lot of areas that are easy to access, and we can't make them general hunts. It's just they would be shot out if they were all general hunts, because there's so many roads and things in it, and um, we do 50 to 100 folks a day that are applying applications or more a day at our office. Plus, you've got all the vendors in town, and you go into some of those stores, and there's lines now. And when the weekend gets closer and people get their paychecks, it gets even bigger. And so, right now is a good time to get in there and get your applications done.
We wanted to point out we'll take a short break in just a moment. Kelton Hatch is our guest. We've got about 20 minutes to go in the show today, and we'll take some of your telephone calls if you're so inclined. Following the break at 736-0300. That's 736-0300. We've got, I'm going to call it 41, on our way, likely into the mid 50s today. And just a quick note, 60s tomorrow, and then we start heading into the 70s. And by the middle of next week, temperatures, and not a lot of rain in sight. Temperatures into the middle 80s, though, which again means a lot of runoff. The weather is service of Mountain Home Auto Ranch in Mountain Home. Bill Cawley with you as well on Top Story on News Radio 1310, KLIX, and newsradio1310.com. Our studio guest is Kelton Hatch. He's joining us from Idaho Fish and Game. We get together about once a month, sometimes a little bit more frequently. Bill Cawley with you as well on Top Story on News Radio 1310, KLIX, and newsradio1310.com. 942, and we have 42 on our way. Well, just jumped to 44 on our way into the mid 50s, most likely before the day is over. And quick note, if you'd like to reach Kelton while he's in the studio, 736-0300. 736-0300. You have a couple of things, as long as we're talking about hunting, that you still need to review.
I do. One of the things I didn't write down that I wanted to mention is, for your graduating kids, your kids that are 17 years old and are going to turn 18 before um, the first of the year, buy them their 3-year hunting license this year and fishing license, because you can purchase it as a junior license.
Mm-hmm.
They can fish on that or hunt on that junior license until they're, well, if you buy it their 17th, so you get a fish on it their 18th and their 19th year, so they won't have to buy adult licenses, and they'll also be able to purchase youth tags. They won't be able to hunt youth hunts with them, but they'll still, because they have a youth license, they'll still be able to save some money on those. So great Christmas present. I mean, graduation present. Get them that youth. I mean, if they're turning 18 next year, and buy the 1 year this year, and then just make sure you buy it before they turn 18 next year. Buy it in December so you can get that and get that savings. The other thing I wanted to talk about is, people have been mentioning, get a lot of questions when they see that their hunting and fishing licenses went up $5. If you're a senior, if you're a junior, or if you're disabled, it only went up $2.50 this year. If you are a regular adult, you get a regular tag, it's going to be $5. What that fee is for, that it was a fee that was put on the license for access to private property, as well to be able to purchase that access. So it's going part of our Access Yes program. And the other $2.50 went to depredation costs on big game animals, like getting into haystacks or grain crops. That was passed through the legislature this last year as part of the fee increase. The other part of that fee increase, just to remember, if you buy a hunting license this year, your hunting license next year will cost the same amount. If you don't buy a hunting license this year and you buy a new hunting license come in December 1st, for the beginning of January, it's going to cost you 20% more. What we have is a thing called price lock, and so it gives people a discount that purchase their hunting licenses and fishing licenses every year. And so um, you may only be getting out for a few days, or you may don't even know whether you're going to get out, but you'll save yourself 20% as long as you continue to buy that hunting license and fishing license. If I buy a hunting license this year and a fishing license next year, I just buy the fishing license, I'll still save my 20% on the fishing license, but then the next year if I buy a hunting license, it'll cost 20% more.
We've got a caller with us, and caller, you're on the air with Kelton Hatch from Idaho Fish and Game on KLIX at 946. Go ahead.
I have a couple questions.
Sounds good.
Sure, go ahead.
So my questions relate to the depredation fee increase as well as the license fee increase.
Yep.
So on the depredation fee, is there a list of recipients of depredation funds?
That's a good question. I don't believe that we give that information out. I think it's under the Privacy Act on that. And so we don't have a list for sure. I'm not exactly sure on that. I'm just kind of guessing. And so but I've never seen a list that shows everybody that receives claims. No.
Okay, I think it would be interesting to see where those depredation fees are being paid in light of the recent pressure from the legislature on increasing the depredation fee costs, and who those recipients are. After all, it is public's money that's going to pay those.
It is.
It's not taxes, but it's an assessed fee, essentially the same thing.
I agree.
So if you'll take that back to your supervisors. The second question I have relates to the price lock. You say that applies like in your hunting and fishing license. Does that apply to the sportsman's pack as well?
It does.
Okay.
And your tags. And so
tags.
As long as you purchase those every year, you will not have that 20% fee increase. And we're hoping that we never have to do a blanket one, because we're believing that we'll sell enough licenses this year. We've got close to 500,000 people that buy hunting licenses in the state.
Right.
However, only about 150,000 of them buy them every year. That really shocked me when I saw that figure, because I've never not bought one. And so, but there's a lot of people that their hunting really is determined on their friends that go and whether their family goes, and how busy they are at work, and it's one of those opportunities they get to do. And so we're hoping that, and fishing is actually the biggest thing. We have almost a 60% rollover every year on our fishing licenses, and so we're hoping that this will help just keep us where we need to be.
I'm glad the price lock's there. I plan to take advantage of it. So.
Well, good.
Appreciate your answer to those questions, Kelton.
You bet. Thank you. Appreciate your call.
Thank you for the call, and we have another caller joining us. Caller, you're up next at 9:48 on KLIX. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. I take my granddaughter hunting and fishing quite a lot, and she is turning 18. I've already bought her the 3-year ticket.
Okay.
But she's going out of state to college. Will she still be considered a citizen?
A resident. Yeah.
Resident.
It depends on, like, as long as they're in college somewhere, they can come back and hunt and fish as a resident. Unless she goes to that state and buys a resident license there. If she buys a resident license there, then she cannot use that college student waiver on there. It's like, and so as long as she comes back, but congrats to get to hunt with your granddaughter. That's fun.
Oh man, you should see it. Last year we came over a little hump, and I was walking along behind her, and she had the 30-06, and we come up against a 20 to 30 headed deer, and she just turned around to me and she says, "Oh my gosh." I said, "There's the buck, shoot him." But it never got one, but it was a lot of fun.
Oh, yes. There's nothing better than getting to hunt with kids and grandkids and spending time. Some of my best memories are spent with my grandfather, and
Yes.
hunting with my dad and stuff, and
Yes.
hunting with my kids most definitely. And so, good for
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. It's to all the grandparents out there, all the grandpas like me in their late 70s. Take them out, get them that woodlore experience because it only helps Idaho.
Oh, I agree.
Want to thank
No,
him for the call. He just said something that I think you've mentioned frequently on the show, and that is we have to develop future fishermen and hunters because we just simply are seeing a cultural change here where there's if we go down this road much longer, there won't be anyone left.
and it's slow. You are seeing it change, and I don't know so much whether we're going to run out of hunters, but we're going to run out of hunter supporters. When I was a kid, they closed school for opening day of deer season.
Hmm.
Well, now my son gets teased by some of the other kids, and my daughters and have been teased because they go out hunting, and that's in Idaho. And it's sad to see that change. That they're, I mean, I understand people can have their own opinions, and don't get me wrong on that. I'm glad, but it's people need to. We're just kind of losing that, and it's good to see grandfathers getting their kids out, granddaughters and grandsons, and parents getting them out, and just enjoying that. Even if that kid isn't a hunter in the future, he's still going to believe in wildlife management for the people, and and it's just better for Idaho wildlife. If he or she becomes a contractor, or if they become a attorney, or if they become a legislator, they're going to look back and say, I really love Idaho wildlife, and I'm going to vote for Idaho wildlife.
We would have school closed on opening day as well, and the reason wasn't so much because students would be out, but they couldn't find enough substitutes on the list to fill in for all the teachers who were out hunting.
Yeah, yeah, and that may have been part of it. I went to a real rural school, and most of our teachers were ladies, and a lot of them didn't hunt, but you know, um, everybody was gone hunting, at those schools and stuff like that. Nowadays, it's nice to see a lot of ladies getting into hunting nowadays, and just a lot of people enjoying the outdoors and doing that. But there's always room for more.
We wanted
Do,
to point
do,
out we're down to about 5 minutes to go, and I know you had a couple of things you might wanted to mention too before we wrapped up the
you
program
know,
today.
I there's a couple things I was going to talk about is hunter's education. One, to get people, we're getting it's amazing to me, but it's classic. I mean, we don't need what we need until we need it, and people are needing their hunter edge certificates right now so they can apply for hunts. uh, get online. We're having a bunch of we've only got a few hunter ed classes going on right now because a lot of them are filling up really quick because people are pushing. We're going to have field days coming up. You can go online, do your hunter education, call, and we'll get a field day so that you can get applied. Another thing we're looking for is reservists and people that are willing or wanting to volunteer to help wildlife. Um, this last week, I've had some reservists, had 6 gentlemen that went down and helped me fish with 365 kids the other day. Over the course of this May, they'll fish with almost 1,800 kids. Over the course of the summer, it'll be about 3,200 kids. Plus, they do pheasant releases, pheasant stalking. They do hunter surveys. They go out and they check do lek routes. They go out and check access yes sites. And so if you're interested in being part of you know fish and wildlife, we have a interview system that they go through, and they need to fill out applications. But we're looking for more reservists to help on things, and we're also looking for more hunter education instructors.
We're going to try to squeeze a caller in here before the end of the hour. Caller, you're up next. You're on News Radio 1310 KLIX and News Radio 1310.com. Caller, go ahead.
Yes, are you guys going to still have a fish day for their Twin Falls High School, or not high school, but Twin Falls schools tomorrow.
A fishing day. Yes, we're fishing with kids from one of the middle schools tomorrow down at Hagerman. We'll have about 350 kids down there tomorrow.
Okay, I just wanted to know. I'm one of the volunteers, and I wasn't sure about the water.
Yep, it's supposed to be beautiful. Well, we go rain or shine. We just ask the kids to put on more clothes so they don't freeze to death. But yep, we're going to be down there tomorrow fishing with them.
Maybe even tomorrow some sunblock.
Well, tomorrow's supposed to be a really nice day. We felt pretty fortunate. It looks like it's going to turn off really nice, and so it'll be good to see you there.
In fact, pretty soon you'll be issuing your schedule for the summer fishing days.
Yes, and I need to get that into you. I forgot, and we've got that list is online right now. It's at idfg.idaho.gov or Idaho or fishandgame.idaho.gov. You can go to the Take Me Fishing trailer, click on the Magic Valley, and it'll show all the dates. A lot of Wednesdays and a lot of Saturdays we're around the Magic Valley, and we have a fishing trailer there. And if you've never learned to fish, or if you got some questions about learning how to fish, we have the fishing trailer there. You do not have to purchase a fishing license if you're fishing with us. You just have to come over and sign in, and we'll have fishing poles and bait there, and some great gentlemen there, some of our volunteers. They'll be there to help teach you to fish a little bit and answer your questions.
Over here we have on our wall a photograph of Paul Harvey fishing in the canyon. And of course, he's got a scarf on and a dress coat, but
he dresses a little fancier than I do when I go fishing. He's got his top hat and his silk scarf and a fur collared trench coat.
I sent a copy of that to one of my old bosses, and he wrote back and he says, "Doesn't count. He's using a spinnet reel."
Hey, I don't care how you catch a fish. They're great in the frying pan.
Yeah, that's true. If you want to reach in and just try to grab them, and
yeah, well, that's illegal. Yeah. You have to use a hook and line. So
probably if you stocked your own pond, you might be able to get away with it.
There you go.
But still, with my eyesight, I would be grabbing at the.
You'd have to do it all by feel.
Yeah. We've got to wrap up. About 10 seconds. Anything else?
Just get out and enjoy the nice weather. Out, look for ticks. Lots of ticks out this year.
Yeah, I don't know. That water definitely is helping their population. We've got a short break. Wanted to point out we'll see Kelton Hatch again in a few weeks. News is coming up next from Fox at 10 o'clock, followed by Rush Limbaugh's program. God willing, if the creek don't rise, that'll allow me to come back and, well, it's going to rise. I do know that. We just talked about that this past hour. It's going to rise a lot in some places. But God willing, if the creek don't rise, that'll allow me to come back tomorrow morning and do this all over again between 8 and 10 o'clock. And keep in mind, Todd Eccles joins us 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. We'll be talking about firearms. Todd has a class this weekend for anyone who's interested in getting their concealed carry permit. We'll be talking more about that as well.